Happy Saturday, everybody. It is a great, great day for Wingy. Hope you guys are doing well. Today's big one, guys. We got a lot to catch up on because we haven't been here in podcast form in a while. Last Saturday was Money in the Bank. We were here for a Raw review, but man, we got a lot of news going on inside of WWE, outside of WWE, in AEW, wrestling news just in general. A lot of all-in stuff to discuss, a lot of King and Queen of the Ring stuff to discuss, as well as SummerSlam. Smackdown last night was pretty good. Dynamite this week was pretty good. We've got all sorts of wrestling news regarding Goldberg, Mariah May. We've got Bella Twin news, some updates on the WWE draft, some new music possibly coming for Seth Rollins along with a faction name. We've got some information on Mr. Iguana, Hikuleo, Private Party, and a lot of wrestling results and kind of previews to get into as well today. So it's going to be a pretty solidly long podcast. I have blocked out 2 hours of time today for this before I have to head to work. So that should give us enough time to get everything done this afternoon because, like I said, there is a lot of it. Hopefully you guys are having a great day. We're going to be getting into action and business here in just a second once I just center myself. I think my camera's being a little funny. But yeah. Happy weekend, happy Saturday, happy Wingy day. We got a lot to get into today, and I'm looking forward to it because some of these subjects I think are going to be kind of fun to talk about. So let me know how you guys are doing in the chat. I'm going to do some hellos and whatnot. Do me a favor, if you want to smash that thumbs up button, I would very, very much appreciate it. Get those likes up for us, and make sure you subscribe. Super chats and memberships are open as always. You guys know the drill, and today should be a good one. Sorry I haven't been here since, I believe, Monday. I did drop a YouTube short, I think Tuesday night, when we learned what Mariah May's WWE name would be. So I did have a little bit of content dropped on that issue, but we will elaborate on that here a little bit more today. But really, Monday night was the last time I have spoken to you guys, and that was when we saw the big shocker, Gunther beating Jey Uso to win back the World Heavyweight Championship in a finish that shocked a lot of people. Monday's Raw was a fantastic show. You know what? I got to say, all three shows this week were good. I enjoyed Raw, Dynamite, and last night's SmackDown. Enjoyed them all. So I think as wrestling fans, we ate pretty well this week. And that championship win on Monday was a shocker, Gunther winning the title back, because nobody really saw that coming. We all thought Goldberg was going to come out and interfere and help Jey keep the title. But Jey dropped the title, and we are going to have an update on that situation, why he dropped it, and what the plans might be going forward, including plans for Jey Uso. So lots to get into this afternoon. Should be a fun one, and we'll be ready to rock here in just a second. Let me just do a couple of shout-outs and whatnot in the chat. I got the chat over here, so it's a little bit harder to see. But good to see Vontae, the new ones here. We got Zane G. Good to see Spartan Sprinkles. We got Tatanani, Nick Musser, Gilbert Arbalo is here. King Bling Blah. We got Rodrigo, JT, Ajax Johnson joining up. Welcome back to the family, my friend. William Cullen is here. Damian Drain, David Brown. We've got, did I get JT? JT, good to see you. Also, Crazy J, JT and Crazy J, Shane, Beelfus. We got Victor Colon, Isaac, Sonic Plays. We've got Denny Downbad, Ben Espinoza. Right on. Everybody else that's chiming in, showing up, good to see you. Thank you for being here, and happy weekend and happy Saturday to you. Going to be a fun one. We're going to get into wrestling news first, which there's kind of a lot of this week, and then we will transition into talking about last night's SmackDown, give an overall recap on that show. Same goes for Dynamite on Wednesday because AEW had another one of those 4-hour blocks. We'll focus mostly on Dynamite because that was really good, specifically that Swerve, Strickland, and Will Ospreay match, plus everything surrounding the Death Riders, Hangman Page, Ospreay, and Swerve heading into All In. And, of course, that big unification match, and we got a brand new championship belt. A brand new championship that has been introduced now in AEW, and that is what Kazuchika Okada and Kenny Omega will be competing for at All In. So we'll break all that down, talk about it, and before we get into that, too, in the chat, before we talk about that situation later on, let me know what you think about that belt. I'm not that much of a fan of how it looks. I was hoping for something a little bit, I don't know, more appealing looking to me. It looks a lot like that old original AEW Women's Championship, but some fans I've also seen liked the way the title looked. So let me know what you guys think of it in the chat there, and later on we will be talking about that. In terms of what to expect from me this weekend, normally Sunday nights are our classic watch-along nights. But unfortunately, tomorrow is Father's Day, and I've got a busy one. So it's looking like I'm not going to be available. So I haven't scheduled a watch-along. I'm going to be working mostly during the day. I might be home in time, but it's too iffy to know for sure. So as of right now, we have no watch-along scheduled for tomorrow night. I'm sorry about that, but we will be back 1 week from tomorrow, provided it's not a pay-per-view day, to do another one. And then this coming Monday, we will be back here as well to either watch Raw together or do a review of it. Not sure. It depends on how much wrestling news breaks between now and Monday. If there's really nothing else to talk about other than what we see on Raw, I'll probably come up and just do a watch-along of it. So keep that in mind for Monday. You will see me. I'm just not sure in which form you're going to see me yet. And unfortunately, tomorrow, there will be no classic watch-along, and I'm very, very sorry about that. So let's see here. We got some wrestling news to get into. Like I said, we've got some Goldberg news. We've got some Jey Uso news, Seth Rollins, Mr. Iguana, American Gladiators, Blake Monroe, and we've got some information and news potentially on Nikki and Brie Bella. I'm going to play a clip from their podcast a little bit later here for you guys to listen to that I'm going to critique. And also, if you guys were here on Monday for our Raw review, you watched me in real time come to the conclusion after we were talking about the segment on Raw between Nikki Bella and Liv Morgan, and then it hit me all at once. I'm like, oh my God, that belt that Liv Morgan is wearing, she's got a friend who has the same one, and sometimes they defend these titles in team events known as tag team matches. Nikki Bella has a sister that looks just like her. Ah, fuck. And I was kind of coming to all that realization all at once on Monday night. And then yesterday, we got some possible confirmation on that WWE is, in fact, interested in bringing Nikki Bella back. So we will be talking about the Bellas and also what Io Sky said on Raw, which I didn't even notice or hear or had a problem with. But apparently backstage, Io Sky said to Nikki Bella that she paved the way for the women of today and whatnot, and a lot of fans got all uppity about that. And then Nikki and Brie responded to that on their podcast. And I didn't care what Io Sky said. I didn't even care about the fans being mad. None of that really bothered me. But when I heard Nikki's explanation, I'm like, okay, hold on a second. So I put up a nice long tweet that's riled up the feathers of some Bella Army people, but to normal people, I think they viewed my tweet as pretty inoffensive and pretty rational take on the Bella Twins' career. So I will give you my thoughts on their career and their possible return, as Nikki for sure will be set for Evolution, and maybe Brie Bella will as well. We will have to see. But we are going to open up with news on Bill Goldberg. Now, a lot of us were expecting to see Goldberg back on TV this past Monday because nobody was expecting Goldberg to win back the title. So we were assuming and figuring that something had to happen in that match. There's going to have to be some sort of a weird finish. Goldberg's going to have to show up. Something's going to have to happen to keep the title on Jey. But nothing happened. No one ran in. No one interfered. It was a clean win right in the middle of the ring. Gunther flat out chokes out Jey Uso and wins back the World Heavyweight Championship a couple of months after losing it at WrestleMania. And I was trying to think of another example of this, of somebody losing the title at WrestleMania and then winning it back from that same opponent just a couple of months later. We've seen people drop the title after winning it at WrestleMania relatively quickly. Triple H in 2002, Austin in 98. There's been a couple of instances, a few, I'm sure, where that's happened. But dropping it back to the same person you lost it to, that's wild shit, man. And I can't recall any time that that's ever happened before. And it took a lot of fans off guard. I don't think any fans were angry about it. I mean, some were. You know, there's a large contingent of the audience that are very, very anti-Jey Uso. So, of course, you know, they were standing off on the roofs and whacking off. They were so happy. And then there's other people who like Jey and feel like he was done a little bit dirty. Apparently, Jey Uso's father, Rikishi, who's already had some incredibly unhinged things to say about his son while he's champion, apparently went off this week. I didn't even care to listen to it because I cannot listen to that old man yell and scream. I don't give a shit what Rikishi thinks at all. But I would imagine he's none too pleased either with how Jey Uso was treated on Monday night. And a lot of fans were left scratching their heads. Well, what the hell did you put the title on him to begin with if you're just going to take it off of him and all of that stuff? And those are valid questions. However, we did learn this week, and this is what we speculated on Monday. I said, maybe the reason they put the title on Gunther again is so they can set up a title versus career match on Saturday night's main event. And I speculated that, maybe something as big as a Goldberg retirement match, you would want a championship on the line. I'm either going to win the championship or I'm going to retire. And it sounds like I'm half right on that because reports are that the reason Jey Uso lost the title to Gunther is because specifically Triple H, wants the Goldberg retirement match to be a championship match. So that's why they put the title back on Gunther. That seems very strange to me. That seems like a Vince McMahon type of call. Oh, we got to have the title on the line. Let's just take the belt off the guy that we crowned at WrestleMania, 11 weeks after he won the title. It seems, or less. It seems like something Vince McMahon would do or say back in the day. So this seems surprising to me that this is how Triple H feels. And I'm not necessarily really against this idea because I'm not expecting Goldberg to win the World Heavyweight Championship. I'm expecting Goldberg to lose his final match. And now with Gunther being champion, I feel like one thing that does is it does secure a Goldberg loss because some of us were worried that he might win his retirement match. And I just don't think that's going to happen if a championship's on the line. I would like to think he wouldn't beat Gunther anyway, but if Gunther wasn't champion going into this, I think there's a fair chance Goldberg might have won, and nobody would have wanted to see that happen to Gunther. So Gunther being champion, I think all but guarantees if this match is going to happen as expected because Gunther is the last person Goldberg has had issues with on television. So this assumption is probably a fair assumption that Goldberg's opponent is going to be Gunther, and this is going to be a title match. But no mention has been made yet on whether or not it was going to be a retirement match or not. That's what we've heard, but we'll have to see if they tie that into it, if it's just going to be a championship match or if it's going to be title versus career. And if it's title versus career and that match main events Saturday night's main event, I'm actually fine with that, especially if Gunther beats Goldberg. But any other outcome there, I wouldn't be happy with. So, it's a Triple H decision that I don't think was necessary per se. I don't think he had to take the title off of Jey Uso, but at the same time, I don't really care that he did. I understand that it's a little strange to see that happen, but years ago, WWE title runs were much shorter. Fans in the last 10 years have gotten used to some longer reigns, especially in the last 5 years or so. We've had multiple year-plus long runs. We've had 4 years from Roman Reigns. We had a year from MJF, a year from Cody. Gunther broke the Intercontinental Championship record that stood for 35-something years. So wrestling fans lately, over the past 5 to 10 years, I feel like have had and have gotten used to longer title runs. Where back in the day, the WWE title changed hands every single time you took a shit. So it's really, to me, not that big a deal in the broad spectrum of pro wrestling for Jey Uso to lose the title 2 months after he's won it, because I personally, as a wrestling fan, have seen that 76 times. But if you're a younger fan that's just used to seeing what you've seen the last 5 to 10 years, that might have been a little bit jarring to you. So from my perspective as a fan sitting in my seat, I don't really care. I like Jey Uso a lot. I think some of the fans that hate him are a bit unreasonable with their critiques, but some fans who don't like him and don't feel like he's main event worthy, sometimes they can get a little bit overboard too, but there's some truth to what they say as well. So really when it comes to Jey, I certainly don't dislike Jey. I like him a lot. He's massively over with the audience. He's a fun dude. He's a great pro wrestler. He's one half of one of my favorite tag teams of all time. All of that about Jey Uso, I do love and respect and appreciate. But some fans who feel like maybe he just doesn't quite measure up as a main event caliber athlete or talent, or a member of the roster, I agree and disagree. He's over enough to have a world title, but I kind of see sometimes what people are trying to say. So, with Jey, I'm chosen not to really have a dog in the fight. Yeah, he was done a little bit dirty, but at the end of the day, what does it matter? What does it matter? And we did learn some news on Jey this week as well after he has dropped the title. WWE on Monday, they've got their final first round match in the King of the Ring tournament on Monday night. It's a 4-way, and we have one mystery person. I forgot who the other 3 in this match even are. But we had a, excuse me, but there was one spot left open. So a lot of fans were thinking, oh, it's going to be Karrion Kross. So it's on Monday night, it's Sheamus, Rusev, and Bronson Reed versus a mystery opponent. And apparently the mystery opponent will be Jey Uso. And I didn't mention that on Monday night. I even had a tweet that I deleted. I said, how funny would it be if Jey Uso won the King of the Ring and then beat Gunther back for the title at SummerSlam? That's Triple H doing that just to rib us because he's mad at us for the R-Truth stuff. I was like, maybe something like that's happening. But Jey Uso is now going to be in the King of the Ring. He is now the 4th opponent in that match on Monday, which tells me he's going to wind up winning that. So I think Reed and Rusev and Sheamus, they're all going to cancel each other out. Jey Uso will win, and that means that Jey Uso in the semifinals is going to have to face Cody Rhodes, correct? And then on the other bracket in the semifinals, it's going to be Sami Zayn and Randy Orton, who won his qualifier last night. So Jey Uso is in the King of the Ring tournament. It might be a Jey and Sami final if somebody screws over Cody. Otherwise, if Cody gets past Jey, then I think Cody wins the whole thing and challenges John Cena at SummerSlam. So let me know what you guys think in the chat there. As we learned this week, I did put up a YouTube short Tuesday night after NXT when this was announced. We did get a nice little video vignette there from Mariah May, who made her NXT debut the previous week by showing up and saying the glamour is here, but we knew because WWE wasn't specifically mentioning her name, in the same way that they didn't mention Ricky Starks' name, we knew we were set for a name change here. So we knew we were going to get something new from Mariah May. Mariah Monroe was tossed around a lot. A lot of fans thought it was going to be Mariah Monroe. Well, the video package, people pointed this out on social media. I have no idea who Sabrina Carpenter even is. But this video package, or this vignette, I should say, with Mariah May, she's in the tub, and then she's got the towel, and there's like the newspaper heading, and then there's like the caricature, the cartoon caricature. It's all done in a similar way to whatever Sabrina Carpenter does. So it's a little play on that, I suppose. And we did learn that her name is going to be Blake Monroe. Blake Monroe. Okay. You know what? When it comes to WWE names, when it comes to stupid WWE, NXT names, your Roman Reigns', your Dolph Ziggler's, your Lyra Valkyria's, your Braun Breakers, every name is just so fucking silly to me. And a lot of fans don't hate these names. I just do. I think they sound comic booky as all hell, and I just don't like how stupid they sound. So when you look at Blake Monroe, it's probably one of the least offensive NXT or WWE names someone was given. A lot of people pointed out as well that Mariah May's niece is named Blake, who she loves very much. So that was taken. And of course, the Marilyn Monroe probably came from Marilyn Monroe. So she's going to be known as Blake Monroe. Now, if it was up to me, I would have just called her Mariah May and be done with it. And we don't know. We talked about this many times because there's so many examples of people coming into the company where they get their name changed and then sometimes they don't. Jade Cargill came in as Jade Cargill. Jordan Grace is Jordan Grace. Ethan Page is Ethan Page. So why did Ethan Page come in as Ethan Page, but Ricky Starks came in as Ricky Saints? We don't know the policy, and I don't believe there's any sort of blanket policy that states if someone gets their name changed or not. I think it's a case-by-case basis. It depends on WWE, what WWE wants. It depends on what the talent wants. We don't know. If you've got to sign away your name and likeness, there might be some talents that say, I don't want to sign my name over to you. So you create your own name for me, and then you can own that. Maybe it's a her decision. We don't know. And if anybody's claiming to know, you don't. You know why? Because we all read the same fucking internet and nothing has come out on this. So if you're saying Mariah May wanted her name to be that, you don't know that. You don't know that. What I am more inclined to believe is that WWE, for whatever their reasonings were, wanted to change her name from Mariah May to a WWE name, and they allowed her to be a part of that creative process. There's nothing wrong with that. I hated the name Dolph Ziggler for years, and people used to always say, yeah, but he named it after his grandfather. I'm like, well, I'm glad his grandfather's named Dolph. I'm glad he's drawn some inspiration for that. It doesn't mean the name's not stupid. Yeah, I get met with the same response every time I complain about Braun Breaker's name. Well, he came up with it. I'm like, what are we talking about here? Who cares if he came up with it? Him coming up with it doesn't change the fact that it's a stupid name. It's an unbelievably, breathtakingly stupid fucking name. But he came up with it. Who cares? Who doesn't matter who came up with it. It's dumb. You know, so we have all these dumb names, and fans get very upset about these dumb names sometimes. So when it comes to Blake Monroe, I can handle this one. I think we all can. There's no reason to flip out. There's no reason to be mad. She could have been given a stupider name than that. She could have been called Brandy Breaker for all we know. You know, so Blake Monroe, we're survived that. You know, some people were saying, oh, it doesn't matter what they call her. The fans are going to call her Mariah May anyway. Oh, really? I don't think so. Because who's calling Gunther Walter? Nobody. We got used to it. It was stupid. It was crazy. We all lost our minds when they changed him from Walter to Gunther. But now I don't accidentally call him Walter. I call him Gunther because I've gotten used to his name by now. And fans will get used to Blake Monroe as well. Within 6 months, you'll be saying Blake Monroe pretty regularly anytime you see her. And even though I don't understand what goes into these decisions in WWE, why people change their names sometimes, why they don't, I don't really think it's my job to understand it. I mean, I don't understand why and how and what goes into each one of these decisions. All I can do is judge the decision that was made. And so to change her name from Mariah May to Blake Monroe, maybe some fans can't handle that. I personally can. I just wanted her name to not be unbelievably stupid. And it's not. Blake Monroe I can handle. So welcome to the WWE, Blake Monroe. Cannot wait to see what she winds up doing. I don't think she'll be hanging around in NXT for too long. I think she's going to have a run there similar to a Stephanie or a Julia or maybe a Jordan or a Ricky Saints. Although it doesn't look like Jordan or Ricky Saints are on their way to the main roster yet, as we heard they might be. And that might be because the WWE draft might be happening after all, which scares me. We've been talking lately that it doesn't feel like WWE needs to do a draft because we've already seen some NXT talent being called up and just being placed places. We've got Nick Aldis and Adam Pearce in place as GMs where they can work out deals and do stuff on TV. And if you need to shuffle around the roster a little bit, just do it like that. If you have to create a transfer portal or anything like that, there's so many better ways, I thought, that they could get some talent moved around to help even out these rosters, and maybe the draft is just not going to happen anymore. Well, we spoke too soon, possibly, because Corey Hayes of Bodyslam.net is reporting that the WWE draft could be returning this summer after SummerSlam, and this could be where WWE is looking to permanently move the draft. In theory, maybe setting up for the season premieres, in the fall. So that might be the mindset here of doing the draft to shake up the rosters. That way, when the season premieres hit for the fall schedule, everything is fresh. Okay, I was hoping the drafts were done. I was really kind of over the idea of the draft because in recent years, I really haven't liked them. In the beginning, they were kind of fun with the thing and you pull the balls or whatever, but now ever since it's just been digitized in those years where they were just shuffling everything on the Tron and then boom, this person's on Smackdown now. It was just so unbelievably creatively lazy. And also a lot of the talent, since everybody is eligible to be drafted, oftentimes, more often than not, you get drafted to the brand you're already on. So what do we do in the draft for? If you want to move pieces around, just move those. Don't waste your time drafting Cody Rhodes, who's already on SmackDown, to SmackDown, even though he's on Raw all the time anyway. Like, don't even waste your time doing that, but it sounds like they might be wasting their time doing that. So since we have seen, quite a long gap between WWE drafts, and if this information is, accurate and this actually comes to be, and we do get a WWE draft after SummerSlam later on this summer, I hope they structure it in a way that's a little bit more fun and a lot less lazy, So hopefully they can make it an interesting show. Otherwise, a draft show usually turns out to be kind of a disappointment, and I don't think the drafts are necessary, but we may wind up getting a draft after all, and that's going to be coming up in a couple of months. Also, our friends over at bodyslam.net are reporting that Seth Rollins is due to get some new music. I think this is good. I don't know how long he's been using this current one. How long has he had this? Whoa, is this all the way back like before COVID when he was doing the eye patch thing with Black? Is that the same song? What was he using before? Anyway, I can't remember the history of his songs, but he is due to get a new one. The song currently that he has is a Def Rebel production, which we all know Def Rebel sucks, and I think a lot of fans are. Some fans like Rollins' music. It definitely, it suits him, and you think of him immediately when you hear it. But I think he could stand to use a new one as well. And apparently, they're looking to get like a mainstream artist to produce this, not Def Rebel. So we've heard the names of Metro Boomin and Limp Bizkit. I think I'd prefer Metro of those two. And apparently Rollins is going to get some new music, and I hope it's good. I hope it's a theme that, can rival, like a Roman Reigns or one of these great, epic themes that WWE has. And since Rollins is going to be your champion this year, and he is aligned with Paul Heyman, he's got this big bad faction. I'm hoping whatever theme they come up with for him is a solid one. That's what I hope, because he's never really had a great one. His beginning one was the Shield was just okay. Even the Shield song I didn't love, and then Seth Rollins' first theme, when he won the title in 2015, that one was okay. I think I would like to see that original theme incorporated, his singles theme, the one that he used in 2015 and beyond. If they could find a way to incorporate some of that beat or that identity into the new theme, I think that might be kind of fun. Or, if you're going to incorporate elements of all of his past themes, but if they had something that kind of resembled that first one, I don't know. I think that might be cool. I have no idea. Who knows what this theme is even going to sound like, but hopefully we get it soon. And also, word is we are actually going to get a name for that faction soon as well. So the longer they wait, I don't feel like that faction is going to have a terribly long shelf life as it is. It's not going to last as long as the Bloodline. So whatever they come up with, if they're going to get music and a name for this group, stick it on them now, because they're going to be breaking up probably in about 6-7 months here or less, depending on what happens storyline-wise with some of these guys. So new music for Rollins on the way, most likely, along with a faction name. And I would love it if they just made it the Dangerous Alliance, but I don't think they're going to make it the Dangerous Alliance. They could, but I feel like whatever faction name they give it is going to be something referencing Rollins rather than Heyman. Dangerous Alliance kind of puts Heyman at the center of it, where, if you name it the Visionary Alliance or the freaking Alliance, there you go. The Dangerous Freaking Alliance. That should be the name. The Dangerous Freaking Alliance. Oh, yeah. Something like that. But I feel like whatever name they do, it's going to reference something about Rollins if it's going to reference anybody. So Dangerous Alliance might not work, but Dangerous Freaking Alliance or a freaking Dangerous Alliance. We are a freaking Dangerous Alliance. I don't know. That might work. I'd be into that. Give me your Seth Rollins faction name ideas in the chat there. We've got The Miz, of course, we know is going to be hosting the reboot of the American Gladiators, which I think is set to debut, I think this year. I haven't even seen when that's supposed to come on. I don't know if I'm going to watch it. I did watch American Gladiators as a kid. I might check this out, but, I only watched American Gladiators because it was on. I didn't set my watch to it. If I'm flipping channels on Saturday afternoon or whenever it came on and American Gladiators was on, I remember watching it. And I remember some of the characters, but I never found myself going, ooh, American Gladiators is on. I got to go home and watch it. I was never like that. I just kind of watched it because it was on. So I'm not sure if I'm even going to check out this new version of American Gladiators, but we do have some wrestlers in it. Wardlow. Finally, Wardlow's getting a push on American Gladiators. Wardlow's going to be one of the Gladiators, along with former WWE wrestler Rick Boogs. He'd make a good Gladiator. Oh, Boogs would have been great in the original. In the original Gladiators from like the 90s or the 80s, whenever that was on. He'd be so great back in those days. He's probably going to be great here too, but I think if he was a part of that American Gladiators squad back 30 or 40 years ago, he would have gotten a WWE deal out of that because he's just so much energy. And also Camille, Big Bad Camille will be a Gladiator as well. So we'll be interested to see what that looks like when that finally airs or debuts. Got some news on Mr. Iguana. Of course, he turned a lot of heads at Worlds Collide, opened up the WWE and American audience's eyes to what he can do. And he's certainly an entertaining guy. And apparently WWE, once they saw the response that he got, they immediately want to use him more. And here's what Fightful Select said about Mr. Iguana and him coming to the WWE. Mr. Iguana is finalizing a deal with WWE. The viral sensation made an incredible impression at Worlds Collide, and Fightful was immediately told he'd be making an NXT appearance, which happened this past week. We're also told that he and WWE are finalizing a deal with the company that sees him make future appearances. There was some confusion as to Iguana's immediate status, as he did an interview claiming he was going to the main roster. The interview was later edited, and there were claims he didn't say it, but he did. We've not heard anything on whether or not he had heat in the company for the comments. He probably did. I feel like, some of these luchadors and stuff, it was, Rey Fenix, it was like the same thing. You guys need to shut the fuck up. Like Mr. Iguana, who, went from having a small following, who's likely going to be a millionaire overnight, because as soon as he signs this deal with WWE, boom, you've got merch and you're going to sell a fuck ton of it. Hell, it might already be available. I don't know. So Mr. Iguana is going to experience some amazing success just based off this one appearance. So if he's a little bit excited about that, I'm very happy for him, but you got to know not to say things like that. That's the type of stuff in a locker room full of insecure men and women. That's the type of stuff that will get you heat. They don't want to hear you talking about, I'm going to get to go to the main roster and blah, blah, blah. So that can probably rub people the wrong way. He said it in the interview. Who knows, what he meant by that. Or maybe he felt because of all of his popularity and his growing popularity in WWE, wanting to work with him, he feels he's going to be main eventing next year's WrestleMania. I don't think it's that. I think this guy is a really, really entertaining character that WWE sees the potential to make money on, and that's it. So wherever he shows up, we don't know if it's going to be, a full-time deal, because, here in the report it says he's finalizing a deal to make future appearances. It doesn't say he's finalizing like a multi-year deal. So maybe they're just inking him up so they can use him on TV and they can contractually, use his name and likeness and sell merch and all that stuff. And they can bring him in from time to time, but he'll still primarily be a AAA guy. I don't know. But either way, sounds like we're going to be seeing more of Mr. Iguana in WWE, and that's awesome for him. So he's gonna be making some money on merch. That's for sure. WWE is going to be making some money on merch. We've heard about the signing, the WWE signing of Hikuleo for, I don't know what, a year now. He was expected to show up and join the Bloodline when that was still going on. We never saw him. Well, we saw him last night. He showed up prior to Smackdown on a main event taping and worked a match. His WWE in-ring debut last night. He won. There he is, Hikuleo. So I don't know what they're going to do with him. I think him showing up on main event doesn't really mean they have an idea for him yet, but they're trying to get him some reps. I mean, they've had him benched for quite a while. I would assume he's going to get involved with Solo and Jacob Fatu. As we'll talk about later, Jacob had a promo last night on SmackDown. Solo appeared on the Tron and said that he's going to be there next week to give Jacob the opportunity to reconcile or whatnot. I feel like next week could be a good spot for Hikuleo to show up, or they wait until you book the Solo and Jacob match. That might be what they're doing. Next week, we might get the booking of the match. I don't know if that's going to happen in Saudi Arabia or if it's going to happen on SmackDown, where they're going to do it. Could be Saturday night's main event, actually. Actually, yeah. I could see it being Saturday night's main event. Maybe you book that Jacob and Solo either at King and Queen of the Ring in Saudi, or you book it for Saturday night's main event. That's where you debut Hikuleo, and he helps Solo win the United States title. So maybe that's where we see Hikuleo finally meet the main roster and television. Private Party, tag team in AEW. Here's what Fightful Select has to say about these guys. They might be on their way out of AEW and on their way into WWE. Wrestling Observer noted that former AEW World Tag Team Champions contracts are up sooner rather than later. As of now, we've not heard if injury time has already been added or if AEW plans to do so. However, Fightful learned in early June that WWE at least had preliminary interest in the duo before the frame of reference regarding their contracts was available. We've not been told if they've been approached either for new contracts or by WWE. And I think heading to WWE would be good for Private Party. I mean, they were in AEW for so long. They're a great team. They had a little bit of support from the audience there, but I feel like a team like them, not everybody, but I feel like a team like them could really benefit from a WWE system, going to NXT. I feel like, Tony Khan just didn't, they just I felt like they forced the belts on them, instead of kind of building fan support for them and rallying the audience to be clamoring and calling for them to get a push. Tony Khan basically rewarded their time and longevity in the company with a title run, and it was very, very underwhelming. And I think it was the Hurt Business, right, that wound up taking the belts off of them. So going to WWE, I feel like they got a better chance of being used more regularly and possibly develop into a championship tag team. And we've talked about this every time someone goes from one promotion to another. Sometimes I feel like it's a bad move. Sometimes I feel like it's a good move. This is a case where I feel like it would be a good move if they did it, if they went to WWE. It wouldn't just be them dream chasing or money chasing or anything like that. I think their careers would legitimately be better if they were signed by WWE and brought into NXT as a tag team and then threw them up on the main roster. WWE's got a pretty damn good tag division, at least on Smackdown they do. And there's some good teams in that company. And I think Private Party would fit right in. So this is a talent, or two talents, I should say, that I'm actually hoping AEW does not add injury time to. I hope they just let their contracts run out and expire, and I hope WWE picks them up. I think it'd be good for them, for sure. All right. Well, let's talk about some fun news here. Let's talk about Nikki and Brie Bella. We saw Nikki Bella make her return to WWE this past week on Raw. We didn't really know what she was going to do. Whoops, sorry. We didn't really know what she was going to do. It just said that she was going to be there. And we also had heard, a while back that she was, re-signing with the company around Royal Rumble time, and then she never came back. We never saw her again. And then just out of the blue, they're like, oh, Nikki Bella is going to be on Raw this week. So we saw her come out on Raw. She cut a promo, talked about Evolution, the pay-per-view coming up, and started rolling through a bunch of names, of women that are in the WWE right now, who she respects and whatnot. And one name that she did not mention was Liv Morgan. So Liv Morgan comes storming out there, gets in her face. They start arguing. Long story short, Nikki winds up eating an oblivion. And then on Monday night during the Raw review, and I'm like, yeah, if Nikki's going to be at Evolution and she's not going to be in a championship match, I think Liv Morgan is an excellent opponent to choose for her to be given a significant match. And then I'm like, oh, wait a minute. The tag team title is around Liv Morgan's waist. And then it all starts hitting me. And I'm like, oh, shit. Oh, no. I'm going to have to hear Brie mode, aren't I? They're going to bring Brie Bella back in, and the two of them are going to win the tag team titles at Evolution from Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez, aren't they? And I was worried. And then we learned this week that apparently there is talk of bringing Brie Bella back in as well to join her sister and potentially have a match at Evolution. So this fear that I had, this realization that I had in real time on Monday that, oh, damn, these two might win the tag team titles might actually come to fruition. So nothing official yet. No official announcement on this. We haven't heard of a Nikki Bella signing. I don't know how that's going to work. Conflict of interest wise, I doubt it will matter. There are plenty of couples and even spouses that work in one company and work in both companies, I should say. So if Brie Bella joins Nikki Bella in WWE. I don't think that's going to be that big a deal for what's going on with Danielson and AEW and whatnot. And, of course, the Bellas went into the WWE Hall of Fame recently and all of that. And there was a segment backstage on Raw where Io Sky had said something to Nikki Bella along the lines of, "You paved the way." Now, I was too busy doing literally anything else to listen to that segment, so I didn't hear it. I didn't even mention it in the Raw review. It didn't even bother me. Apparently, it bothered a lot of fans. What do you mean, paved the way, blah, blah, blah. So a lot of fans were kind of upset about that. And I think it's kind of silly to get mad about a comment like that. I do not believe they paid anything, or they paved anything. They paved, the road was already paved. The road was long since paved before they ever even stepped foot into a hot woman tryout, but it's not something I would really get upset about. But apparently Nikki Bella did hear the criticisms, and on the Nikki and Bree podcast this week, she had a couple of things to say about it. And I'm going to play you that clip, and then I will let you know my thoughts on what she said. So here's Nikki Bella's response to some of those people complaining about what Io Sky said.
I get for some of the young people or some of the ignorant men, let's just be honest. I don't even give a shit. They don't get it, right? Because they're just thinking moveset and they're thinking wins and championships. They don't think of the overall picture. And majority of the time it's because they're not a woman. They've never had a fight for what we've had to fight for. One, not only are they not a woman, they're not a WWE superstar. Right. So they don't understand it, right? But so a road paved is, women that did so much more than that because they were fighting to do more of that moveset, more of what happens in the ring. So there had to be a huge fight outside of it.
Okay. First of all, I don't mind Nikki Bella responding to the fans that had the issue with what Io Sky said. No problem. I think the fans that got uppity and was screaming and yelling, getting all mad about it, pick your battles. You know what I mean? However, first of all, what she said might be true for some fans. But when I hear something like that, and I think to myself, I have been watching wrestling. Now, she's right. I'm not a WWE superstar and I'm not a woman. But I'm also not a young Mark, as Bree called us, and I'm certainly not an ignorant man. I do look at the bigger picture, always, and I do understand. The only thing you have right is I'm not a WWE superstar and I'm not a woman. But I absolutely understand. And I'm certainly not an ignorant man. It has nothing to do with being a man, being a woman. None of this matters. If this was a male wrestler with the same type of career, I'd laugh at anybody that told them they paved the way too. So it has nothing to do with that. But I resent that anybody who has a problem with this is just cast off as an ignorant man. I don't give a shit. Oh yeah? Well, you should give a shit. Because guess what, Nicole? 25 years before you or your sister even stepped foot onto the stage in a Diva Search tryout, I was watching wrestling. That road has been paved long before you two were even a gleam in your mom's eye. It's been paved. It's littered with potholes. There's tree branches laying all over the road, but it's fucking paved, and it has always been paved. So when it comes to Io Sky saying that, I thought it was a little bit silly, but it was certainly nothing for me to get mad about. But then when Nikki starts saying things like that, they don't understand. No. I do understand. I understand perfectly. I like the Bellas. I do. I appreciate what they contributed. You guys heard me back in the day when when they were wrestling. I was proud of Nikki Bella for her performance against Ronda Rousey. I was proud of Brie Bella in her feud with Stephanie. For two women that got hired because they're hot, just like Trish Stratus did, they turned into incredible professional wrestlers, or Trish did. Nikki was good, Brie was okay, but they were much better than I expected them to be, all of them. And I will always give them credit for that. But if Nikki and Brie showed up to the Diva Search tryout that day looking like Sarah Huckabee Sanders, if two Sarah Huckabee Sanders showed up there in bikinis, they wouldn't have been given a second look. They were a big part of the Divas era. Their names are almost synonymous with divas, total divas. They were, the problems with the women's division and the issues women's wrestling had, those issues were created by the very era that got them hired. And so when it comes to their success, that's what I've always admitted. It's like they've had great success inside and outside WWE. They've made names for themselves. They've made lots of money. They've had outside WWE projects. They were a part of a reality show that was very, very successful for WWE, brought a lot of young women's eyes to the product, maybe helped get a lot of new fans watching women's wrestling again. But because of those shows. But this idea that women's wrestling, I think it's the pioneer stuff that I just don't agree with. These pioneers who paved the way. No, they had incredible success when they came in. They were more successful than I thought they would be. but you remove them from wrestling history and the women's division is unchanged. At worst, we don't get a total divas, but women's wrestling was going to evolve with or without them. If anything, AJ Lee had more to do with that than they did. They were still a part of that divas era. You know, Nikki Bella was basically the last Divas champion, right? Then Charlotte beat her, and then it morphed into the women's championship. So they were a part of that Divas era, that embarrassing era in women's wrestling where women were only there to be these divas in these bikinis and in these sexy segments, and they weren't taken seriously as women's wrestlers. And so Nikki, you know, was pointing out that they had to fight. We had to fight for all of this. I don't know if it was really you specifically that was fighting. I think the fans were. You remember the Give Divas a Chance thing? Shout out to our friend, Solo Monster. I remember years ago watching him on social media. He would time the Divas matches like 2 minutes. Every week on Raw, you got a 2-minute match, 2-minute match, 3-minute match. And the fans were starting to get upset about that and saying, why don't you give these women a chance to go out there and show you what they can do? So the fans were bubbling. WWE took notice. The women's division started evolving naturally. Stephanie McMahon was a big part of that too. And then when she brought in all of those 4 horsewomen to say, okay, there are going to be wrestlers here now, Sasha and Bayley and Becky and Charlotte, all kind of coming up together, more or less, and, transitioning the division into that. And once those women got there, Nikki Bella left. She was there. She got beat by Charlotte, rather handily, and Charlotte won the title, and then Nikki hung around for a little while, and then she had that great match, I thought, with Ronda Rousey at Evolution. Nikki Bella always really over-delivered for me in the ring. I always thought that she did way better than I thought she should have, and Trish Stratus was a lot like that too. Trish Stratus, I think, will go down as my favorite women's wrestler of all time, a lot for the same reason that I compliment Nikki Bella for, because she came in as a fitness model. She was there to be TNA. That's it. And when she got there, started getting in the ring, started improving, she became a really good women's wrestler when I didn't think she should have. And Nikki Bella kind of did the same thing. She really improved in the ring. She was not bad in the ring. She should have been, but she wasn't. I feel like she was even better than Brie, but Brie even had her moments. So the two of them, I've always acknowledged their careers, what they've done, what they've given to wrestling, what they contributed to the women's division and whatnot. But I think it's a little bit eye-rolling to call them pioneers. And, they went into the WWE Hall of Fame and, the path that we paved for these women, like, come on. Their careers and their runs in WWE, point blank, are grotesquely overstated. And I'm not here to understate them. When I put up that tweet yesterday, there's a lot of fans had a hard time getting. I opened up the tweet with, I like the Bellas. I like Nikki. She's been to my restaurant before. I've met her twice, seen her at the airport, seen her at my restaurant, had conversations with her. She's cool. The Bellas are cool. I'm not a fan of Brie mode, but overall, the Bellas are cool. I've never really had anything against them. Still don't. But this idea that they're pioneering, trend-setting road pavers, it's just fucking ridiculous to me. Maybe it isn't ridiculous to you. This isn't really a debate. I feel like my belief that their time in wrestling and the careers and the marks and the legacies they left is overstated. I think that's a very, very fair, inoffensive, and non-controversial take. I think that's pretty typical among anybody who doesn't have Nikki and Brie as their profile picture on social media. You got Nikki and Brie, or one or both of them as your profile pic on social media, you probably hate my guts today. But if you're just a regular ass motherfucker, you probably agree. Because I don't think that this belief is controversial. I think this is a very rational take. A take that most people throughout the industry would agree with. The Bellas are great. They did wonderful things. They're nice women. They're going to be remembered. People are going to remember them, who they are, what they did. They will remember Nikki Bella being proposed to at WrestleMania. They will remember, Brie Bella and her feud with Stephanie McMahon and how cool that was. They will remember some of what they did. Absolutely. They will go down as memorable. But there's a lot of people like that throughout wrestling, men's and women's division, who did a lot of memorable things. But if you remove them from wrestling history, nothing is going to be different. Well, they brought Aaron the Divas and a lot of like women. It would just been somebody else. You know, if it wasn't them, somebody else would have been in that position fighting for things. You know, it wasn't just them. You know, it wasn't because of them. I think it was because of everyone. It was because of the women, the fans, WWE finally taking notice. Hey, the fans want to see more from these women. We better give it to them and cut the shit with this bikini pillow fight nonsense every damn week and actually give these women, these athletes, a chance to go in there and wrestle. Because they're not divas, they're wrestlers. Let them go in there and wrestle. And they started to do that, and the business has evolved and has been evolving, at least in the women's division in WWE, ever since. But I don't know if I can credit them specifically for that. You know what I mean? You know, it was a whole entire ball of wax that got that evolution moving. So even with what they contributed to the women's evolution, if you removed Nikki and Brie, my personal belief, I'm not stating this, I just speak facts. I'm not that type of podcaster. There's enough of them out there. I'm just saying, in my opinion, you remove Nikki and Brie from wrestling history, I don't really see that much of a difference in the women's division. I think, all in all, it would look exactly the same. Maybe it would have a few less fans on the women's side because they didn't have that stupid reality show on E! I don't think people should be watching that shit anyway. But like, so maybe they'd have a few less eyeballs, but I still think Total Divas would have happened without them. I think that show would have happened. They would have had other women. You know, the Bellas weren't the only hot women there. You know, there's a lot of other women in that Total Divas show as well. And then, you know, morphed into Total Bellas or Total Bellas even in Total Divas. It was Total Divas first and then Total Bellas. Point is, it wasn't just them. There were other Renee and Natalia and who else? Naomi. Was Paige a part of that? There was a lot of women involved in that Total Divas show. So I just don't think anything would be really different. I look at a trendsetter. I look at a pioneer. I look at someone who paved the way as someone who, without them, the business or the division in which they worked would look drastically different. You know, you take away Hulk, I fucking hate Hulk Hogan, but you take away that dickhead out of the 80s, who knows, the business wouldn't even resemble itself today. You know, imagine if Austin never got on the map. Imagine if Austin never existed, but the screw job did. WWE would have been out of business. So you think of like, you think of trendsetters. You know, I'm no big fan of Moolah, but I think she was the original paver, you know, there. And the women's division has gone through all sorts of ups and downs throughout the years. WWE has started it and stopped it over and over and over again. That's why I will credit the Bellas. I put this on Twitter. I said, you know, you might have filled some potholes in the already paved road, because for a while there, women's wrestling was non-existent. For a while there were so many tree branches in front of the paved road that you couldn't travel down the paved road. Because when Alundra Blaze went to WCW and dropped the WWE women's title in the trash can, WWE decided to say, we don't have a women's division anymore, until they started to bring it back. And then when they did, it just turned into Sable and her tits. And then when it morphed beyond that, then it's Trish and her tits. And then it just got, you know, it was just more and more of this diva and Tori Wilson and Stacy and the legs and the pillow fights and the bikinis and the bras and the making out with Vince backstage. It was just a fucking mess. So it did start to turn out of that. And a lot of women deserve credit for that, including Nikki, including Brie, including AJ Lee, including Paige, including Sasha, Charlotte, Bayley, Becky. There's a lot of women and Natalia comes to mind. And, you know, even back in the day when the Divas division was a joke, you had some wrestlers there. You had Victoria. You had Molly Holly. You had women who knew what they were doing. Road paved. Already paved. Couple of potholes, tree branch here or there, but it's paved. Nikki and Brie came along. They were the first ones to kind of pull the first few. They didn't have any equipment. They didn't even have any gloves. They just took a few tree branches out of the way, and then the heavy hitters came in and cleared the way. So the best I can do is give them a smidgen of credit for helping along the evolution, because they did. They did. They did. This is not a Bella Twins hate piece. I do not dislike them whatsoever. I actually am quite fond of both of them. But I'm not insane enough to think that they're the reason for all of this. No, that's silly. So I think it was just a little bit, it was a little bit much. And, you know, and Nikki, you know, another way I'll defend her is that all she was doing was responding to the Anger Boys. because Io Sky made that comment on Raw, and of course the Anger Boys, blah, blah. So I can understand her wanting to say ignorant men. I shouldn't take it personally because fucking social media is nothing but ignorant men. Insecure, ignorant men are all over the place. And the more they claim to be right and the more they claim to speak facts, the more insecure they are. And that's the nature of social media, especially wrestling fans, especially male wrestling fans. So I can imagine that Nikki Bella probably read a whole bunch of stupid shit all week long. So if she had to vent a little bit on her podcast, no problem. But it was hard for me not to resent thinking that because I have this opinion, she's just going to assume that I'm some ignorant man who doesn't understand the bigger picture. I'm older than both of y'all. So shut up. And I think that's kind of what I took issue with. But at the end of the day, it's not a big deal. I like the Bellas. I'm just not putting them on my Mount Rushmore. That's all. And if you want to have them on your Mount Rushmore, that's fine. All that's going to tell me is you've been watching wrestling since 2011. So, that's it. So it depends on what generation you're in. There's obviously going to be a generation gap between me and a lot of fans, and me and especially several generation gaps between me and really, really young fans. So if you are living inside of a pro wrestling bubble that doesn't have, that doesn't go beyond 2011, yeah, the Bellas were probably pretty influential to you. But in the grand scheme of the big business, the bigger picture, as Nikki calls it, they were a blip in the radar. So I think that's just the difference between a fan like me and a younger fan who's, only been watching for a handful of years. Probably less time than I've been doing this damn YouTube channel. So anyway, there's my thoughts on Nikki and Brie. Since there was some butthurt people on Twitter when I put up that tweet. Let's see what that tweet's doing now. What are we up to? I went to bed with 200 likes. It's up to 1,200 likes. And so naturally, when you have that much response, some people are going to really be upset. But I'm just trying to be fair. Wasn't trying to hate. And I think that's another bad part about social media now is that people are just assuming that everything they read is mean-spirited. I got called, boy, you sound like you're really mad. I'm like, I do? Rage ain't exactly my thing. If you follow this channel or watch my podcast, how often am my fucking veins bulging out of my head? At the end of the day, I never care. I think my thing is always I don't care. I don't care enough. It's not that I care too much, but I think people are just assuming that everything is coming from this source of hate. And I'm like, no, I'm just talking that it's silly to think they paved the road. They didn't. They did not pave anything. And that's okay. You can still like and respect what they did. I'm not shitting on them. I'm just saying I don't agree that they belong on any sort of women's Mount Rushmore. I think that's a little bit silly. But anyway, that's it for the news. We got to move on to other stuff, like last night's Smackdown. Good show. Really good show, I thought. Actually, wait. Before we talk about Smackdown, let me just scroll down here. Just want to mention Raw real quick. Really good Raw this past week, of course. We talked about Gunther winning the title. Jey Uso is now in the King of the Ring. And also on Monday, we had CM Punk and John Cena setting up their match for Saudi Arabia. And we had the return of Bayley. So we had a good Monday Night Raw this week. We also had a great Dynamite on Wednesday. But last night's SmackDown I thought was also kind of fun because we had some King and Queen of the Ring matches. And John Cena, a lot of people got in his face last night. My God, he opens up the show, comes out to talk his smack. He's interrupted by Cody Rhodes, who was then interrupted by Randy Orton. We haven't seen Randy since Backlash. And then they're interrupted by LA Knight. So we had Cena, Cody, Orton, and LA Knight all in the ring. LA Knight says his piece. John Cena just doesn't want to have anything to do with it. And he leaves. He goes to leave, leaving through the entranceway, and he's attacked in the aisleway by Ron Killings. So Ron showed up on Raw, of course, cut off his braid, and now he's Ron Killings. There's no more Truth, even though they're kind of still calling him Truth. And now he's going after John Cena. So he got John Cena, got him a piece of Cena in the crowd, and they would be interacting later on as well. Also, I don't think there was no sound during it, but I loved the shot of Cena backstage, turning his hat around and screaming and yelling at Nick Aldis. That was great. After that, we had our first King of the Ring. I'm sorry, this was who else was in this match? Yeah, I forgot who else is in this match. I've got Randy Orton defeating Carmelo Hayes and LA Knight, right? But who was the fourth one in that? Shoot. I have an error in my notes. I'm getting, of course, a terrible memory, so I can't remember. Can't remember who the opponent was. I have it right here. Oh, Black. That's right. It was Aleister Black. So it was Randy Orton defeating Carmelo Hayes, Aleister Black, and LA Knight. It was an awesome finish, too. It was an RKO, so Carmelo was going for basically just a top rope splash. I think onto LA Knight, and Randy Orton came in and hit him with an RKO, wound up pinning Carmelo and advancing. So now it's going to be Randy Orton and Sami Zayn. They're going to be battling in the semifinals to face the winner of that will face the winner of Cody Rhodes and whoever wins the match on Raw. So that was our first King of the Ring match there. Randy Orton advances. Then we have a Jacob Fatu promo on Solo Sikoa. And Solo Sikoa shows up on the Tron, and he says he'll see him next week, and he's going to give him an opportunity to say he's sorry, and he said that he brought Jacob in, he can take him out. And since we saw, like I said earlier, since we saw Hikuleo make his in-ring debut last night on Main Event, I think next week is a good place for him to show up. If he doesn't show up next week, then I think he'll show up in whenever they book the U.S. title match between Jacob and Solo. And I think Solo is going to beat Jacob Fatu for the title. I think that's going to happen. And when that does, Hikuleo could be a part of that, and Solo can have his, his own little group there with JC and Hikuleo, and he's the champ, in the middle and the centerpiece there. And I feel like that'll either happen in Saudi Arabia or it'll happen on Saturday night's Main Event. We will see. So I think we had 4 in total King of the Ring matches last night. The next one up was ladies match. Jade Cargill advances, defeating Piper Niven, Nia Jax, and Mia Yim. This was great. She hit her Jaded move on Piper Niven. That's pretty hard to do. Double underhook and slamming her down. Pretty cool there. Jade Cargill now advances, and we'll talk about how that bracket looks here in just a second. We also had a Naomi and Tiffany Stratton promo. Naomi's out there with the briefcase, and she tells Tiffany that she's going to cash in when Tiffany least expects it. And in the meantime, she's going to take the chance to make Tiffany's life a living hell. So she goes to leave. In comes Nia Jax from behind. She hits Tiffany, attacks her, hits her with the Annihilator. So she hits her with the Bonsai drop in the corner, wiping out Tiffany, and then Naomi is right there at ringside with the briefcase. So she comes in to cash in, but Nia Jax stops her, like, no, not today, sister. So no cash in for Naomi. And Naomi is who I picked since to win the Money in the Bank since right after WrestleMania when she lost to Jade Cargill. I'm like, the only way that makes sense for her to lose to Jade is for her to win Money in the Bank. And now she has. And I feel like she absolutely has to cash in on Tiffany. And I feel like a good place to do that would be Evolution in whatever match Tiffany winds up happening. But that's still a month away, so we've got 4 or so weeks of Naomi just teasing poor Tiffany, and we'll have to see if Naomi shows up on Raw to tease Io. She might. We don't know. Wyatt 6 were in action last night. Joe Gacy, Dexter Lumis, they defeated the Motor City Machine Guns. Top rope leg drop to Sabin from Lumis for the win there. Uncle Howdy and company in the aisleway, watching in the rocking chair. Good stuff there. And maybe the next step is to put the tag titles on the Wyatt 6. Then we get John Cena back out to the ring. He wants to call out R-Truth. He's mad at R-Truth, or Ron Killings, I should say, for the attack earlier on. But he's interrupted instead by CM Punk, who comes to the ring. And, of course, they set up their match in Saudi Arabia last week on Raw. And Punk calls Cena a joke and talks about how he will sacrifice everything to stop him. And Cena made mention of Punk being a hypocrite, so definitely sounds like, that's kind of them acknowledging Punk's past feelings on Saudi Arabia before. I wasn't sure if they were going to really lean into it, so I don't know how. I'm sure Cena's probably going to bring this up in every promo, but I kind of thought it would be something that they would address kind of once and then just kind of leave it alone. We got to have some sort of a reason for Punk to go to Saudi if he's going to go to Saudi now, and what can we do creatively that will make him look as little of a hypocrite as possible, you know what I mean? So if it's for the title, and if he wants to end John Cena so badly, you're going to have to chase me to Saudi, and that's going to be Punk's reasoning for, just saying, fine, I'll go. and then just leave it at that. But, they're bringing it up a couple of more times here. Ron Killings then shows up and attacks John Cena from behind. So the truth hurts, which is what CM Punk said to him after Truth locked in an STFU on Cena, and Cena's screaming, and Punk gets on the mic and says, the truth hurts, which is phenomenal. So that was pretty good there. And we wrapped up SmackDown last night with a couple of more King and Queen of the Ring matches. We had Alexa Bliss defeating Charlotte and Candice LeRae and Alba Fire to advance to the semifinals. She hit the Sister Abigail on Candice during a figure 8 on Alba Fire, but the referee counted 3 on Candice, and Alexa Bliss got the win. Charlotte didn't look too pleased about that. But hey, at least think about that, guys. Charlotte lost at WrestleMania. I think she lost her Money in the Bank qualifier, right? And now she lost in the first round of the Queen of the Ring. So WWE feels like they're cooling her off until they can, figure out a way to creatively do something with her where the fans just aren't going to sabotage every second segment and just boo her completely out of the building. If I was Triple H, and I wouldn't put this past him, because I feel like he's kind of doing this with Karrion Kross a little bit. But the fans are so over Charlotte. I feel like Charlotte was so disliked that she could be jobbed out for 3 straight years and the fans wouldn't give a fuck. But I think if Triple H just continues to have her lose, she's not losing really clean. The Money in the Bank qualifier and this King of the Ring match, these are multi-women matches where she's not involved in the finish, but she's kind of on like a little bit of a losing streak here. And she certainly isn't, shoehorned into the title picture anywhere. And all of these things that we don't like about Charlotte aren't happening right now. You can't be mad that Charlotte is just on TV. Like her or not, Charlotte's got an incredible legacy for herself, and fans shouldn't be mad at just the sight of her on TV. What they should be mad about is, her winning 17 championships, every 5 months, and her being, shoved up our asses and just being pushed all the time, and, and getting priority over everybody else, that type of thing. Those type of things that we've come to not like about Charlotte. None of that literally is happening right now. So, if that continues, then maybe, she'll be not doing anything long enough to where a few fans are going to be like, yo, when are you going to start pushing Charlotte again? It would be amazing to me if it actually got to that point, but maybe that's what Triple H is trying to do here. Because now, what is she going to do? She's not going to go to Saudi now, I don't think. And, well, she could get a title match. Are they doing that? Because the King and Queen of the Ring, that's just going to be 2 matches. The King of the Ring final, the Queen of the Ring final, those are 2 matches. Punk and Cena is going to be another one. I don't know. I don't know if Gunther is going to do something or not. So, maybe Charlotte gets a rematch against Tiffany or something like that. I suppose that she could do something in Saudi Arabia, but right now it doesn't look like she's factored into anything too major going into Saudi or going into SummerSlam. But we also have Evolution on the horizon, and you got to think that Charlotte's going to do something of significance there as well. Maybe they wind up moving her to Raw during that draft. That happens. I don't really know what the future holds for SmackDown. So our final 4 right now in the Queen of the Ring, it's going to be Roxanne Perez and Jade Cargill in the semifinals. And on the other side of the bracket, it's Alexa Bliss facing the winner of the match on Raw, which includes Asuka. She's making her return on Raw. She's in a 4-way. I forget who the other 3 women even are, but I feel like Asuka might win that. If she's going to come back in a Queen of the Ring match, she needs to win that. So I feel like the final 4 is going to wind up being Roxanne, Jade, Alexa, and Asuka. And I think a Jade Cargill and Asuka final could be a lot of fun for the Queen of the Ring. And I feel like at this point it might be Jade's to win, but I kind of hope it's Asuka, because I feel like with Jade, I really want to see Naomi. Oh, well, I guess that could work too. You could have Jade win the Queen of the Ring, and then Naomi cashes in, and then it's going to be Jade and Naomi the rematch. But I kind of felt like a triple threat might be better. So I kind of hope that Jade doesn't win the the Queen of the Ring, and then I hope Naomi cashes in successfully, and then Naomi just winds up defending against both Bianca and Jade in the triple threat at SummerSlam. You don't need the tournament to determine that. You can have the Raw person win the tournament, which might be Asuka. I'd have Asuka win the tournament. Then she challenges Io Sky at SummerSlam. And then Naomi can still face Jade, because you've got a storyline reason to get to that match. You don't need Queen of the Ring. So that's how I would do it. I would have Asuka win the Queen of the Ring and face Io Sky. But, you still got Ripley. Ripley might be champ by then. It might be Ripley and Sky at Evolution. They're probably going to do that, right? So, it could be Ripley and Asuka. I don't know. But I feel like Asuka, I'd prefer to win over Jade because I feel like Jade can still get a title match at SummerSlam without needing this. But I felt like Rollins could have gotten a title shot without the briefcase, and he won the briefcase anyway. So it could very well be Jade Cargill, but I kind of hope it's Asuka. Show closed last night with another King of the Ring match. Cody Rhodes defeating Shinsuke Nakamura, Andrade, and Damian Priest. Crossroads to Nakamura here for the win. So it's Sammy and Randy Orton on one side of the bracket, and Cody Rhodes will be facing the winner of that four-way with Miro, Sheamus, and Reed, along with Jey Uso on Monday. So I feel like for the men, the final four is going to be Sammy and Orton and Cody and Jey. So between those four, how is Sami Zayn going to get past Randy Orton? How is that going to... That's next week, by the way, on SmackDown. Next week on SmackDown, it's John Cena versus R-Truth. Forgot to mention that earlier. They're facing one-on-one next week on TV. We're down to 17 or 18 appearances left for John Cena. Also, Randy Orton versus Sami Zayn, and Alexa Bliss versus the winner of the match from Raw. So I guess is there Raw and SmackDown people involved here? Because they've got that match set for next week. Alexa Bliss is going to face the winner of the match that I expect Asuka to win. And I'm not sure when Roxanne and Jade is happening. That might be happening on Raw. I'm not really sure how these matches are going to go down. But Sammy and Orton and Rhodes and Jey is an interesting Final Four. I feel like I can't see Jey Uso beating Cody Rhodes unless Cody Rhodes gets screwed somehow. But then are you going to beat Jey again? Have Cody just beat him again? Right now, I'm still going to be leaning towards Cody Rhodes to win the King of the Ring. I just feel like that's an accolade WWE would want to give to him, and it gives him a match against John Cena at SummerSlam, which again, I feel like Cody Rhodes could get that match with John Cena at SummerSlam without the King of the Ring. Punk is getting a title shot just because he had a promo with Cena on Raw. So Cody can essentially do the same thing for SummerSlam, in my opinion. So he doesn't need the King of the Ring, but I feel like right now it's likely that he will. Also, there's been the pitch for Sami Zayn. Kind of do the Daniel Bryan 2013 thing or whatever year that was. At SummerSlam, a lot of people are saying Sami will win the King of the Ring. He will then beat Gunther at SummerSlam for the championship, finally winning the world title. And then Rollins will cash in and spoil the party and win the title. And then Sami will go on to win the Rumble and win the title at WrestleMania. So they could be doing a repeat of the Yes Movement thing with Sami. They very well could do that. But I'm not totally convinced that's the plan. But it does make sense, and it does add up. All right, let's talk next about... Well, before we do that, let me go to the chat. We're going to talk a little bit about Dynamite. Just want to give the chat a refresh. If anybody hasn't smashed that thumbs up button for me, I would appreciate it. Let's make sure I can see everybody. Oh, Ryan, I did not know that. Thank you. Trish is supposed to be on Smackdown on Friday. I did not know that. So there's some people mentioning that it could be Trish Stratus against Tiffany Stratton at Evolution. That is possible. Ryan's got 5 for us earlier. Thanks, dude. Just saying I won't be super chatting for a while. I bought a house. Holy shit, Ryan. Congrats. Bought a house. Hell yes. Good for you, man. Congrats. Hell yeah. House buying is a big deal. Congratulations, dude. Right on. Okay, I think that's caught up on the super chats there. Yeah, we got to talk about AEW Dynamite. Good show this week, I thought. Really enjoyed it. This build to All In, which is still a month away, has been solid. Real solid. All you AEW haters and psychos out there, I'm sorry to tell you, but it hasn't been bad. It really hasn't. Dynamite or AEW ran another one of those 4-hour blocks of hell on Wednesday night. Summer Blockbuster, this one's called. Next week, it's AEW Grand Slam in Mexico. Arena, Mexico City is where Grand Slam is going to be taking place. That's kind of cool. But this past week's Dynamite, man, oh man, this is why I like having competing wrestling companies, because you get matches like what we saw open the show. 30-minute Broadway, Swerve and Will Ospreay, absolutely fantastic fucking match. So unbelievably good. Loved every second of this, and I love that we can get these type of matches on Dynamite. We see them quite frequently, and Ospreay is just incredible. You know, some of those hidden blade attempts and some of the things they were doing in that match were just off the charts. So, of course, the only thing I didn't really like was right at the finish there, you know, because it went to a draw, time limit draw, 30-minute time limit draw. So they're trying to do the deal, like both of these guys respect each other, right? Even though they're in this very grueling match. So Ospreay's on the apron, and he's kind of sitting up on the apron, and Swerve is going to go up to the top to give him the Swerve stomp. But he's taking his sweet-ass time getting up there. He even falls and stumbles, and I'm like, what are they waiting for? They're waiting for the bell to ring. Bell rings, they run out of time, and Swerve opts not to deliver the death blow there to Ospreay since the time has run out. Swerve then gets on the mic. He wants sudden death, but then they are interrupted by the Death Riders, who are joined by the Young Bucks. They attack. The Bucks have got Swerve down. They pull out the sneakers, the pairs of shoes with thumbtacks on the bottom of them. They put them on their feet. They're set to kick Swerve Strickland right in the face right when they go for it, Will Ospreay, who in his promo, I think the last week or the week before, said that he would take a bullet for Swerve, dives in front of him and eats the thumbtack kick to the face, and he goes down, and he literally took a bullet for Will Ospreay there. And I loved what they did backstage. Hangman goes to check on Will Ospreay, but he's interrupted by the Bucks, and the Bucks are telling Hangman, you know, just stick to the plan, and you will beat Moxley and bring the title back to the Elite. Clearly, they're full of shit here. They told him that they weren't trying to hit Ospreay. They were aiming for Swerve. And all this time when they're talking, you see Prince Nana's head sticking around the corner. So Nana and Swerve are in the trainer's room there with Ospreay. Nana kind of sticks his head out. He's listening to everything. And Hangman tells the Bucks, he goes, look, man, just stay out of my business. Stay out of Ospreay's business. And then he pauses and he goes, and stay out of Swerve's business. You know, and then you cut to the trainer's room there, and Nana was like, hey, Swerve, did you hear that? And he's like, every fucking word. So I kind of like that. I like what they're setting up, because they're giving you so many different, you know, possibilities to what we could see in the Moxley and Hangman match, because there are so many other elements to worry about. And we probably are going to get a tag team match with the Bucks taking on Ospreay and Swerve. I was thinking it was going to be Ospreay winning the Owen and Hangman and Swerve facing the Bucks. That's what I thought they were going to do. So this was switched around a little bit, and I'm worried for what that could mean for the championship match, because later on, Hangman Page would be kidnapped, bound and gagged, mouth duct taped, and Death Riders bring him out to the ring, and Moxley starts talking to him and says, yeah, I don't like you. You're a weird guy to figure out. You're all over the place. And says a few funny things to Hangman. And then the Death Riders put the chair on his head, attempting to Pillmanize him until they are interrupted and saved by, or Hangman is saved by the Ops. Joe and Shibata and Hobbs run down there to run off the Death Riders. And then Hangman gets on the mic and vows to win the title literally no matter what. So I worry that with everything going on with the Bucks, and, you know, when Hangman and Swerve, you know, kind of slowly trying to make peace with each other, this is all being done because they need some sort of a storyline out to not put the title on Hangman Page. Because with the contract signing that we would see in the main event, and what we've talked about in previous episodes, there has been talk, even before they unveiled this new belt and we learned anything about it, that the Continental and International title unification match could be the main event. And if it is the main event, then Jon Moxley is not going to be losing that AEW championship. And if Jon Moxley does lose the AEW championship, that absolutely needs to be in the main event. So I feel like AEW has accidentally spoiled the fans a little bit here, because we're going to know. We're going to know if Hangman Page wins the title before the match is over, or is before the match happens. Because if we're watching All In and Hangman and Moxley is match number 5, Moxley is retaining the title. But if we're watching All In and Okada and Kenny is match number 5, that means Hangman and Mox will be the main event, and that means Hangman will win the championship. You, Tony Khan, you little fucking weirdo. I love you. I love Tony Khan. I got nothing against him. Fans who hate him are idiots, by the way. If you're one of those people, you're a fucking idiot. But if you put Hangman and Mox in the main event of All In and you have Moxley retain, I'm going to have some words with you. No, I'm not. You're not going to even hear me. I might have to go on a rant. Okay, go for it. That would be insane. If he does that, I will fucking kill him. That, not literally. So let's hope that he's not that stupid, but I feel like that's going to be your indicator when you're watching All In. If you get Kenny and Okada mid-card, fans should pop hard for that. Yes, because they know what they're going to see. It's going to be a great moment for Hangman Page. But if the plan is not for Moxley to drop the title, and Tony Khan has got another show in mind for that, that means he's going to have to retain somehow. And with all of these moving pieces, I feel like you can easily book something where Hangman gets screwed. You got to do something better than the bloodline finish that they've been doing a couple of times with Moxley. I think if a Hangman is going to lose, it's got to be, maybe at the accidental hands of Swerve Strickland, and then Swerve's got to try to make it up to him, or the Bucks show up, because the Bucks are like, oh, stick with the plan. Hangman wants nothing to do with them. So I feel like the Bucks could screw him in the same way that they screwed Swerve, and that is what could, because that's what we could wind up getting if we don't get the Bucks versus Ospreay and Swerve at All In. If the Bucks wind, or we still could get that, but if the Bucks wind up costing Hangman, and they've cost Swerve the title, and now they've cost Hangman the title, then Hangman and Swerve can demand to face them in a tag match, maybe at All Out, and maybe that's where Jon Moxley drops the title. But if you get to All Out, now you're inching ever so closer to the year mark of when he won that thing. So I feel if they make it to the end of August, you might as well wait the year at this point. And I feel like deep down that might have been Tony Khan's initial intent, for Moxley to hide that belt for a year. I don't know why you would do that. I don't know why you would hide your championship from the world for a solid year, but there's a really good chance that's happening. And I feel like with everybody involved in this Hangman, Ospreay, Swerve, Moxley, Death Riders, Young Bucks situation, there are too many possibilities there for Hangman to get screwed, and I feel like it's very, very possible that he could. And if Ospreay were to have won the Owen, you could essentially be doing all the same things you're doing now. I feel like Hangman and Ospreay are almost interchangeable in the context of Moxley retaining the title. If Moxley is not going to drop the title, it didn't really matter. That's what we talked about in the review when Page won. I said it felt like it kind of didn't matter in that case who won if Moxley's keeping the belt until Wrestle Dream, or All Out or something like that. So if you would have had Ospreay win the Owen, I feel like a lot of what we're seeing on TV right now in this build would remain kind of the same, just with a few pieces changed. So I'm nervous. I'm nervous that Hangman Page winning the championship is not a given at all in, and there's a real big possibility that he's not going to win that title. I hope I'm wrong about that. We had Mystico. Check out Mystico. He beat Blake Christian on Dynamite. This was done to set up next week in Mexico. MJF taking on Mystico. So after Mystico wins, the Hurt Syndicate come out. MJF plays his Lex Luger 1993 theme. We get streamers. We get the big American flag. And MJF gets on the mic and calls Mystico a sloppy Sin Cara, and they've got their big match next week at Grand Slam. Sloppy Sin Cara. What a disaster that was. It was Mystico first, right? Then Hunico, and Mystico had all those problems, and he fell down. He had the issue in the match with Alberto Del Rio where he wanted to quit and stuff. Like, he had so many very embarrassing moments, it felt like, in that run. So Mystico versus MJF next week. So then we went right into the Hurt Syndicate match, six-way trios match. Shelton, Bob, and Max taking on Kevin Knight. Mike Bailey, Kevin Knight, and Mascara Dorada. MJF unmasks Dorada. So I feel like that's what they're going to try to do next week in Mexico. He's going to get so much fucking heat in that building. That is going to be nuts, man. Ugh. I want to check something right now. Just want to get the venue on that. Okay. I don't know why I started second-guessing myself. I'm like, wait a minute. Is it in Arena Mexico? It is. Yeah, so he's going to get heat out the wazoo for that one. That's actually going to be kind of fun to watch. But I really hope that they don't do any sort of unmasking. What am I doing? What's happening? Here we go. Sorry, technical difficulties briefly there. We're back on track now. So anyway, Hurt Syndicate get the win there. MJF unmasks a luchador, and let's hope that he does not do that next week in Mexico. And we also had the returning Ty Mello. She's back with Anna Jay. She returned last week to save Anna Jay, but now she's back in the ring. First time in like 2 years. The Ty Mello who's been in the ring, she looked fantastic. Jay and Mello defeated Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford, and I can't say enough good things about Ty Mello. She looked fantastic. Definitely looks like she's been working and training, and for someone who's been off as long as she has, I thought she looked incredible in this outing after having the kid, so good for her. And you can kind of tell Tay Mello and Anna Jay, they look great together. Know who else looks great together? Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford. You're starting to see a lot of teams forming in the company. Now they're starting to dress alike. I loved how Megan and Penelope looked. They look great together. We're going to get some AEW Women's Tag Team Championships real soon. Definitely feels like they are setting up for that. Tony Khan has mentioned in the past several times that he's open to it, wants to do it, plans on doing it. So it's going to happen. I think many fans are of the opinion that if there's one thing AEW does not need, it's more championships. I agree with that a little bit. There was a time there where there were 97 belts in the company, when they had all the Ring of Honor people. You got regular tags, trios tags, pure titles, TV titles, world titles for both, just so many championships. And, we had matches on Dynamite where every single match a champion would be involved somewhere. So it got a little bit ridiculous. It's a little better now. WWE has since now taken the lead on that after they decided to create two women's secondary titles at once. Now they got titles out the ass over there. And AEW creating women's tag team titles, I'm not against the idea. I just don't know if they can sustain that. We're already, AEW already has an issue with featuring women as it is. We get 9-match, 4-hour-long pay-per-views, sometimes with one women's match. They don't get featured that much or as much as they should, according to some fans. And I worry that women's tag team titles, I don't know. I feel like there would be room for them for sure. But I just don't know if I trust the process over there to have a good women's tag division. But, maybe I'm also, being a little bit too pessimistic. I think having women's tag team titles there, the one good thing about that is that it would force Tony Khan to give more TV time to some women who are sitting around. Some of them, like Deonna Purrazzo, are starting to become vocally frustrated. And that's not a new thing in AEW. We've kind of seen that a lot from the talent there who really struggles to get TV time to get used. So at least if you've got a championship and you're a woman, you're women's tag team champions, okay, we should be on Dynamite or Collision every week. We should be doing something on one of those shows virtually every week. If not a match, a promo, a segment, something. And so in a way that could be good, and it could be a way to get a team over, but I also fear that based on Tony Khan's track record with his women so far, that this could be a huge disaster. But I'm willing to give it a chance. I think enough time's gone by now. No fan can complain that AEW's got too many titles. No, WWE has too many titles. AEW has a lot. Both companies just have a lot. That's all it is. One company doesn't have two more than the other, or too many more than the other, whatever. They both have arguably too many championships. I think we can agree on that. I don't think one company is really a bigger offender than the other. I think right now WWE is, but if you tack on some women's tag team titles in AEW, it's probably going to even them out a bit. But I just hope that if they do that, that it doesn't result in nothing but criticisms from the fans. Because if you start a women's division, a tag team division, you better do something with it. You can't just start it and say, okay, we're starting it, and then you've got the women's tag team championships benched for 7 weeks. You cannot do that, Tony Khan. So if you're going to do this, you got to do it. You have to be all in on it, and you have to dedicate time on your TV shows every week to this stuff, to your women's division and now your tag team division. Luckily, most weeks on Collision are filled with nothing matches. It's just the one what they ran on Thursday, my God. Or no, what they have set for, next week, just so many multi-man deals. And a lot of times on Collision, you got New Japan guys on there, an occasional AAA guy, and just people in Ring of Honor all over the place. You got plenty of TV time room for a women's division and a women's tag team division. You just have to do it. And I just question whether or not they will and they can effectively, you know what I mean? But when I saw, for example, Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford on Dynamite, I'm like, the tag team titles will look great on them. So that would result in TV time and something significant creatively for them to do. And that seems to be the problem a lot in AEW, is sometimes you just sit around doing nothing. So tag team titles will result in TV time for women. And so I'm choosing to look at the positives there. And we finished up Dynamite. What a wacky ass contract signing. Started out just fine, and then got nuts at the end. Kenny Omega and Kazuchika Okada were out there to sign their contract for All In. Of course, it's international champion Kenny Omega versus continental champion Okada. There's been talk for months now that they're going to unify these belts, and both guys have turned in their titles, and they had a brand new one to be unveiled right there at the table of the new unified championship. And I think you guys saw a picture of it in the thumbnail. We've all seen it by now. I think I've already gotten rid of the one that I had. No, there it is. Should have had that prepared for you guys. Sorry about that. But here's the title. Like, what do you guys think of it? I'm only showing the front plate there, but it's kind of got it's that skinny version, and it looks a lot like the original AEW Women's Championship that was real small that Riho held, remember? And so I don't know if I love the look of it. I don't know if I like it any more or less than the Continental or the International, but I think I was also kind of secretly hoping that AEW would have called it the Intercontinental title. And a lot of fans are like, oh, they can't do that. They're going to be accused of copying WWE. Well, sure, let them. Who gives a shit? WWE's copying AEW by counter-programming them everywhere. When AEW runs a weekend, WWE wants to run that too. So I think that classifies as copying as well. So I think with all the counter-programming WWE's doing and all the shitty things they were doing, I thought it would have been hilarious if Tony Khan combined those two and called it the Intercontinental title. New Japan had an IC title for the longest time there until they unified it. There's no trademark on the Intercontinental title. As a matter of fact, that belt back there, that classic IC title, I don't think there's a trademark on that either. That's a Reg Parks belt, and we've seen that design used in ECW and other organizations around wrestling before. I think Tony Khan could actually make an Intercontinental Championship belt that looks like that. He could do it. And then he could say, I'm going to make my Intercontinental title division better than WWE's. I think that would have been hilarious. I would have been perfectly fine with it. Combining the two belts, into this one and making their own Intercontinental Championship. I got no problem with that at all. I was hoping that they would do that, but they didn't. They're not going to call it the Intercontinental Championship because apparently it might not even be a secondary title. Apparently this belt is going to be essentially kind of like a second world championship. I also think that's a good idea because theoretically, when you unify two championships, if you unify two mid-card championships and now there's two of them, shouldn't that effectively kind of make them stronger if you've mashed them together? So I feel like the belt, if you're unifying two belts, the new belt should be higher up than the other two were. So, maybe if Tony Khan wants to make himself kind of like an unofficial second world championship, a belt that they're going to consider as important or nearly as important as the current AEW World Championship. And this thing is going to leapfrog the TNT title, which really felt like it's lost all its steam in the past couple of years. If that's the case, then yeah, I can kind of see why this match might have to be the main event at All In. It might have to be. If that's Tony Khan's intent here, and he wants to get this championship over as a major championship, and now you're going to kind of run around with two world titles, then I can understand maybe wanting to do that at All In, which means Moxley might be retaining. But the segment after these guys sign the contract, they're sort of okay with each other here on the same page. But then out comes Don Callis. He starts getting mad that Kyle Fletcher or Takeshita's not in this match. And Kenny's like, look, dude, cut the shit. I know what your game is. I know what you're out here to do. I know all your tricks. And Callis says, yeah, you might know all my tricks, but you didn't know this one. And then Okada attacks Kenny from behind, absolutely destroys him. The medical staff comes out with a stretcher and whatnot. They're in the ring, putting Kenny on the board. And when they're putting him on the board in the ring, Okada goes up to the top rope and hits him with an elbow drop on the board there. So now Kenny's, even in worse shape, and they start dragging him out of the ring now on the board. They start putting him on the stretcher now on the outside of the ring to wheel him away. And that's when Okada comes off the apron with another elbow, this time on the stretcher. And the stretcher falls, and Kenny Omega immediately starts just vomiting out these chunks of blood, like horror movie style, like stabbed in the throat, spewing blood chunks. So comical and hokey. It almost... Well, it did. It didn't almost. It left the realm of seriousness and into just ridiculous. It was just silly. Like, I was enjoying the segment. Everything was fine. And then I found myself laughing at the end of it, the way he was just coughing up the blood. And the reason he was coughing up the blood is because of, I don't know if you guys know this. Not too many people know this. Only business insiders like myself are aware of this. But Kenny Omega, he battled diverticulitis. Yeah. It's true. I know you probably haven't heard that before because, nobody mentions it. So in order to get that type of information, you got to listen to an insider like me. But yeah, he went through diverticulitis. He was out of action for a long time. And, and his abdomen and his gut is in really, really rough shape. And I'm really, really happy that I'm here to inform you guys of this information because otherwise I don't know how you'd get it. Thanks, Excalibur. My God, how many times can they fucking mention diverticulitis? So he hits the elbow drops on Kenny. Blood up chucks out of his mouth. Hilarious stuff, really good stuff. And you got another month of this. So I don't know if we're already exploding blood chunks out of her mouth and the match is a month away. I don't know what the hell you're going to do for the next 4 Dynamites. We will see. But the way this was set up, the importance of it, the unveiling of the new belt, the contract signing, as it sits right now, a month ahead of All In, it feels like this is our main event. I hope it's not. But it feels like it is. Hopefully Tony Khan, if he's got some bigger plan for Darby winning in Seattle or something like that, I hope you just abandon those plans and just put the belt on Hangman Page at All In, for the love of fucking God. and just end this already. That's what I would like to see. But Dynamite rolled on Wednesday. It rolled right into Collision. Here's some quick results for you. Kyle Fletcher defeated Anthony Bowens. Tony Storm defeated Julia Hart. On the outside of the ring, Mercedes Moné was there for the second week in a row eating a steak, right? And I saw this the week before, and I was just mortified, because I'm I've been in restaurants my whole life. I like food. I understand food. And I'm looking at Mercedes out there, who's, I guess, trying to portray this image of, oh, I'm rich and I'm a star and I can sit out here and drink wine and eat a steak while you're wrestling. And I remember all the way back she loves steak because back on the Broken Skull podcast, she mentioned like, hey, I eat steak. So she eats steak. The problem was the steak that she had was just it's a New York strip, but it was just a brick of meat sitting on what looked like a lily pad on this giant platter, and just a plain brick of meat. She cuts into it. It's well done on the inside, which a lot of people are pointing out as a heel move. I get it, but it's kind of a heel move, but it's even a healer move to enjoy delicate, wonderful food while other people are fighting. That's equally as heelish of a move. So that brick of meat that was sitting on that large green lily pad should have been a filet mignon, medium rare, fucking sauce on it, little demi, little red wine, bordelaise, a poivre, anything. Just nice, delicate little sauce, not a lot, just right over the steak, on a bed of some whipped potatoes, along with some carrots and maybe some broccolini. Have you ever been to a wedding? Have you ever gone like a big, like a lavish wedding, and then the reception, you sit down for dinner, what do you get? You get a little filet with some mashed taters and a little vegetable and some sauce. It's the wedding reception fucking dinner. So that would have looked real. Like that's an actual meal. But instead she's got this giant, burnt, well done brick of New York strip sitting on a goddamn lily pad with no sauce, no sides, no nothing. I was like, what is going on? It used to be when like Carmella used to do the Carmella thing. What was it? The little talk show segment she had on Smackdown. She would have no shit an $8 bottle of champagne in that bucket. I'm like, what are you guys doing? I know a lot of the wrestling fan base isn't going to know the difference between good champagne and bad champagne, but you got to make some sort of an effort. You can't put Martinelli's in there or fucking Corbel or whatever. I'm like, you can get that shit at 7-Eleven for $9. Get something nice. That used to drive me crazy. So Mercedes out there eating that brick of meat. Last week, they improved it. It was still the New York strip, which I don't agree with. I think it needs to be a filet, but it was cooked a little better. You could see some red inside of this one, and she had some sides. Looked like some nice asparagus, some nice Brussels sprouts, and I think some mashed potatoes or mac and cheese. I wasn't sure, but she had big bowls of the sides. Again, kind of unnecessary. Just plate it nicely. Give her the steak on a nice big plate with the little mashed potatoes and the vegetables there. Put maybe drape the asparagus over top of the steak, pour a little sauce on it. That's all she needed. Give her a glass of red wine or champagne, whatever she's drinking, and that would have looked real. That would have looked like a meal that someone prepared. So they improved, but I feel like Tony Khan and whoever back there is setting up these segments needs to consult me before they do it again. Just DM me. DM me. I'll tell you exactly how to set this up. Got to do better than that. Anyway, it was just kind of amusing to me. Also, Mark Briscoe, Tomohiro Ishii, and Willow defeated the M&M Collection and Taya Valkyrie. We had Bandito beating Beast Mortos. Thekla defeated Queen Aminata, and it looked like there were issues between the two of them. Aminata threw her leg off, no sold the finish, and walked off. I feel like there might have been a little bit of something going on there between those two, and the Callis family defeated the Paragon. Next week, Grand Slam Mexico, Arena Mexico, Mexico City. We've got Mark Briscoe taking on Kazuchika Okada. Mercedes is challenging for the CMLL Women's World Championship. She currently has 5 titles, so she might be picking up a 6th championship next week. We will see. We've got Moxley, Claudio, Wheeler, and the Bucks taking on Will Ospreay, Swerve Strickland, Joe Shibata, and Hobbs. We've got Bandito. We got a big, giant match here. Bandito, Atlantis Jr., Templario, Brody King, Daniel Garcia, Adam Cole versus Hechicero, Kyle Fletcher, Takeshita, Josh Alexander, and FTR. And we have MJF versus Mystico next week, and Ricochet versus Hologram versus Mascara Dorada versus Lio Rush. Hologram is okay, right? It's Commander's hurt, right? Hurt Syndicate. They beat someone up on Wednesday. I think it was Commander, and I think he's hurt. And he was replaced by Dorada in that match. When? This past week. Yeah, I think it's Commander that's injured. So anyway, big week for AEW. All In shaping up to look pretty good. I'm happy with the build so far. That first year of All In, their build was shit, remember? So far, at least the two big matches, Moxley, Hangman, Okada, and Kenny, has had some solid builds so far. So looking forward to All In. That's going to be a big weekend. I will take off the whole weekend, and we're going to try to watch all of it here. We're going to watch, well, maybe not watch, but we're definitely going to review All In and Saturday night's main event. Not sure if one's going to bleed into the other or not. I don't know if we're going to have time to, we probably won't, to be honest. I'm not sure if we're going to have time to review All In before Saturday night's main event goes live. So I got to look at all the times for that weekend and figure out what's best. Maybe we do a big show after Saturday night's main event and review them both. Yeah, don't really know yet. Or maybe we watch All In together, and then I stop. I watch Saturday night's main event, and then we go live after to do a big review of both shows. We'll see. Also, Evolution the day after. We're going to be watching that as well. Going to be a big weekend coming up here in about a month. So, yeah, that's pretty much it for my notes. We did make it in the allotted time. I was a little bit worried that we wouldn't, but we did. Let me see if there's any super chats I need to worry about. Doesn't look like there are. Making sure I don't miss anybody. Yeah, right on. Why is Greg healing and cutting a promo on Monet's meal? Because it sucked. She can do so much better. Her meal sucked. Well, I will say the one on Wednesday was better. It was better than the week before. The week before, I was offended the week before. I'm like, that's not classy. You know, you're eating and plus the camera kept cutting to Sasha last week, and she's really struggling to chew. That's how you choke. I almost died on a New York strip. 2012. I was only living here for 2 years. I'm home alone. I cook myself a big New York strip, and I take too big of a bite, and it gets stuck, and I'm choking, and I get up, and I don't know what to do. I'm all by myself, so I leave. I know I'm dying. I'm like, I'm dying. It's stuck in me. So I run out my front door because I'm in an apartment, hoping I can get to a neighbor's house just to bang or for them to call 911. And I know I'm not even going to make it that far. I'm like, I'm not going to make it to the door. And I throw myself over the railing, and this gigantic hunk of meat comes flying out, lands right on the hallway floor there. I took a picture of it with my phone, and I look at it every so often to remind myself how close I came to dying. And it was on a piece of meat just like that. Big New York strip. I slightly overcooked it, and I paid the price. And when I'm watching Sasha, or Monet, Mercedes, when I'm watching her, I'm like, she's going to choke. She's going to fucking choke on that. So I was offended that it was so poorly prepared. And if you got to go out there and chew on a steak, you know, that's the wrong steak to do. It's got to be tender. Give her a fillet. Cook it right. Put some sauce on it. You know, so this week at least she had some sides. She had some Brussels sprouts and whatnot. But it was hard for me to look at that and be like, isn't there anybody back there that ever worked in a restaurant, has any sort of fucking basic culinary knowledge at all? They can just say, hey, let's make this look better. Maybe they should hire me as their culinary master. I love that. This is buggy. It really did bug me. It offended me. Like, what the hell? What the hell? Yeah, good point, Shell Shock. I mentioned that earlier. We're talking about AEW having all the belts and stuff. They're about to merge too. So we're going to lose one belt already, so I can easily see a women's tag team championship coming in, especially since they're finally dropping a belt. One thing I don't know, though, is how that's going to affect the Continental Tournament. All right, what happens there? Like, is the tournament going to happen, but they're going to stop giving a belt for it? I don't know what's going to happen there. I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe the Continental Tournament will merge and unify with the Owen, the Continental Owen Tournament. I don't know. Anyway, I got to get out of here because I got to go to work. Again, I want to apologize deeply. I'm so sorry that we are not going to be here tomorrow night for a classic watch along because it's Father's Day and I got a busy day. But we will be here on Monday night, maybe to watch Raw. But if a lot of news breaks and we have a lot of stuff happening on Raw or scheduled for Raw, we might just schedule a review instead. Not sure. Either way, stay tuned and join me on Monday for some fun. You guys have a great rest of your Saturday. Thanks again for hanging out, and I will be catching you in just a couple of days for Raw. Peace.